Hello everyone and welcome to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Well, it's Fawkes Night and I'm out on my way to some fireworks displays so you can hear them and you can decide what's happening. Well, at the moment I'm walking in my street, and ahead of me I can see smoke rising, kind of like a battlefield. I can also hear in the distance fireworks which are going on, and you also will hear them just in a few moments. So I don't have to go very far to actually look for fireworks. They are all around me. These are not actual displays for the community. These are only our neighbours who are doing it for their children. You know, the strange thing about our communities these days is that we unfortunately, as I was saying, we unfortunately don't actually speak to one another. We live in communities where we no longer communicate. We don't talk to our neighbours. And so I would love to go and chat to my neighbours and say, lovely fireworks, well done, aren't they beautiful? But they appear very hostile. They're not open to communication. And it seems that that's the way we live now. Everyone's in their bubble, and they don't like people who enter their bubble from the neighbourhood. It's very sad, and there's lots of negative consequences of this. It means that our neighbours can do what they want and nobody can really complain about it. But it also, in a good way, means I can do what I want and nobody complains about it. But at times like this, when people are setting off fireworks, it would be lovely if we could do this together as a street. But that isn't possible. So what you're left with is a street where you don't know who's setting off the fireworks. Really, you see them going up and you worry a little bit, especially for pets and for animals and these things. Anyway, it's fun to be out and to be in the middle of this. When I was a little boy, I remember that my parents used to set a little fire in the garden and set off some fireworks. Our communities do actually have organised fireworks as well. Organised fireworks, usually organised by the government, take place. But these days, those things need tickets, and they can cost between 10 and 20 pounds to actually attend. So it's not something which I actually do or even want to do. After all, the sky is lit up with my neighbour's fireworks, so why do I need to attend a larger display? Well, the larger displays would certainly have bonfires and big fires for kids. It's kind of like a celebration for children, but it's a little bit more dangerous. Let me tell you the history of it. Guy Fawkes basically was a terrorist who was living in the 17th century. And living in the 17th century, as far as I know, wasn't much fun. And he had a bit of an issue with our government, so he tried to destroy the Houses of Parliament by putting gunpowder underneath Big Ben. Unfortunately for him, he was caught. And when they caught him, they put him in prison and then they hanged him. His name was Guy Fawkes, and so this night is called Guy Fawkes Night, to remember what would have happened if Guy Fawkes had succeeded. There's a few very negative things about Guy Fawkes Night, and the one that troubles me most is that I live in an area which is very impoverished. Supposedly, it's very poor. Well, that is poor by British standards. I don't mean poor as in poor in the world. I mean people here receive a lot of money from the government because they are living on benefits. And because they are living on benefits, you would think that they wouldn't have a lot of money. That's the theory. But actually, fireworks cost around £25 a piece. So that must mean that there's a lot of money around here, because you hear how loud they are, and you hear how many they are. So the question logically is, well, where does the money come from? I can ask the same question about my neighbours who drive Mercedes and BMWs, because they don't work. So where's the cash coming from? And of course, I'm not allowed to make any assumptions or to think about why or anything else. But unfortunately, there is a problem. And that problem is the way we live and our sense of community. I would really love to be able to organise an event where neighbours could come along, we all could get together and get to know each other. But that's not possible, because my neighbours would either be drunk or would be drug addicted, would be high, or something else would be wrong. Now, I'm not just making that assumption, of course, not everybody's like that. But English teachers, when we go to live in other countries, we often set up what we call peace circles. And that's the way to bring the community together. For example, when I went to live in Arabia to teach English, I brought my students together from different tribes, people who often didn't know each other. And they brought food and they exchanged stories, and they realized that they weren't so different if you think of Arab tribes with religious differences like Sunni and Shia. And it was the same in other countries. Usually we organize a kind of meet-up where students can get together and share their culture. With all of that in mind, it's such a pity that living where I am, I can't do that with my own people, because there's such hatred and jealousy, and I don't know why. And I'm telling you this just in case you think that Britain is a fabulous, wonderful place. Perhaps for an immigrant it might be, but not for native speakers, because we really have issues with one another. But anyway, getting back to Guy Fawkes Night, you can hear all the noise it makes, and I've told you a little bit about the history. The noise of the fireworks, people know now that it's not good for animals. So they try very hard to reduce noise after a certain time. I think, for example, after 10 o'clock at night, you won't hear any fireworks, or else somebody will call the police. And the other thing about these fireworks is somebody has invented silent fireworks, but it's not the same, and they're probably even more expensive. Fireworks are actually quite hard to buy now. The main supermarkets refuse to carry them because of health and safety reasons. After all, they're filled with gunpowder, so it's not the safest thing in the world. And apart from that, to store them at home also might not be such a good idea, especially these days when we all have central heating. We're not always as careful as we should be. Still, for children it's a wonderful idea. But for people, I'm not so sure. Anyway, there's bigger issues here than simply bonfire night. I'm talking more about culture, society, and capitalism. Money that's just given to people so they don't have to work, they don't have to worry. It's like giving someone an injection. Don't worry, you're unemployed, have some cash, here you go. And I find that attitude towards people who aren't working very difficult and frustrating. It's nice, I suppose, for some, but it doesn't really inspire anyone to go out and do anything. Anyway, Guy Fawkes, there's a movie about him. It's called V for Vendetta. It's not actually about him, but he's in it and he's one of the main characters. So it would be very nice if you would be able to see that. It's a very famous movie. This night, 5th of November, is very stressful for many people. People like me who generally is quite quiet and sensitive. I don't like all this noise, all this banging. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable and upset. But there's other people who thrive on that, who love that idea. Probably, if I had my way, or if I could choose how to celebrate this night, then I probably would go to my garden, and I have one big enough, and just set off some nice quiet fireworks for the children. Not loud fireworks, just to let them carry some sparklers and something very minor. But what I'm seeing tonight looks more like an episode of The Wicker Man. Have you seen that movie? Where they take a real person and they put him in a like straw body and then they kill him. It's a very strange movie. So it's a little bit too extreme for me, not something that I'm comfortable with. And if you put that also with the darkness, the car headlights, the traffic, it's kind of like a recipe for disaster. I'm hearing in the distance the police, ambulance sirens as well. A lot of things happening, you know. So I don't know what's going to happen next. But on this night, usually there's accidents of children, accidents of people with fire. It's not the best night in the world. Well, that's a little talk about our firework displays. I'm sure downtown there's a big one that's free, as well as the private ones, there usually is. But as many of our governments and councils now are saying they have no money, of course, fireworks would be falling really out of fashion. And very quickly, because they're expensive, they're dangerous and hopelessly out of fashion. By the way, they're not actually legal all across the UK. They're illegal in Ireland because, you know, Ireland had problems with terrorism and terrorist groups, so you're not allowed to buy them there. But like I say, even here they're kind of getting hard to find now, so probably another 10 years, I would guess this kind of thing would be finished completely. But I'm just looking up at the sky and I'm seeing what looks like shimmering stars every minute. So clearly somebody has cash. The question is who and how? Because if these things cost £25 per item, it would be a little bit strange, you know. And now they've all started in the streets behind me and above me, offset by a very beautiful full moon there as well, which is lovely. And I think next to the full moon, that's either Jupiter or Venus that's shining as a star in the sky. I'm watching children acting strangely as well. They're dancing up and down in the street here, either of too much sugar or too much excitement. I don't know what. But it doesn't look friendly. So I'm just going to end here, and I'm going to go back home. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's catch up soon.